It's everybody. It's you ever want to find out what you need to fix? All you have to do is visit your childhood. Visit up the behaviors you learned or did as a child, and it carries over to you as an adult. Like, again, why do I have to eat until I'm stuffed? Because my parents told me I had to do the clean plate club, otherwise I wouldn't leave. Right?
Welcome back to the Sina Good Health Podcast. Today we're talking with William Sturgeon from Restored Strength. We're talking about the Mediterranean diets, all kinds of good stuff like emotional eating and portion size. And anyway, let's just get right into it. Yeah, so the inspiration for this was there's this article about how the Mediterranean diet was called the best diet for the fourth year in a row. So do you want to start off just kind of explaining what the Mediterranean diet is for people?
So, from my understanding and from what I've been able to interpret of what the Mediterranean diet is more of a pescatarian type diet where they're focusing um, more of a fish-based diet and kind of looking at the simple things that everybody else does with it. You know, getting whole grains, whole vegetables with it as well. So it's just that it that's from what I've always understood from it.
Right. Yeah, and yeah, like you said, like it's the hitting the basics of like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, healthy fats, blah blah blah,
Right.
and then just limiting red meat, and instead they do like fish and eggs and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they do very simplistic things, and uh, it's kind of just a play on just any other diet. Honestly, is
Right.
it's just they're changing one part of the formula, but everything else is the same.
Yeah. So, do you want to talk about like so they focus on olive oil being like the main added fat, and do you want to talk about the benefits of like monosaturated fat versus saturated?
Well, when we look at saturated fat, it's thing that's already been reprocessed. It's something that's full of grease. It's things that are going to be clogging our arteries, raising our cholesterol. Where it's just an unhealthy fat. Where we look at monosaturated fat, and it's just going to be those healthier oils that we get out of it. That's going to allow these good benefits of feeling fuller. It's going to be protecting our organs, keep our body warm. So all the things that we gain from fats.
Yeah. So you want to talk about like so we've got the Mediterranean diet, which seems like the monosaturated fat as opposed to something like the keto diet that seems to like almost emphasize the saturated fat.
Yeah, and the keto itself, again, it's it's a play on one of the parts of the formula. So what they focus on more so is, you know, those higher protein, higher fat type meals, and it's a play on the formula. They're pretty much trying to eliminate carb intake to an extent where you can get full from what you need with fats and protein, though that works. It's not something you should do long term because we think of carbohydrates, and I feel like everybody just throws rocks at carbohydrates, and they're just like, hey, I'm just your friend, and they're like, no, go away, right? And so basically with both those Mediterranean and the keto diet is they're trying to eliminate or reduce carbohydrate intake, and you do see a play in how the body changes because of that. But again, there's a lot of negatives that happen with that because you're basically taking away a macronutrient that's essential for your body to have, for your brain to function, for your heart to work, for your body to work, right? So um, it's more so of find the balance between how everybody can get along: fats, carbs, and proteins, right? That's, I don't know, that's just my play on it though.
Yeah. Well, and the article also talks about so all of the top, 4 or 5 whatever diets all have the similar stuff of like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, lentils, nuts. Um, so I'm going to talk about like how eating just kind of along those lines helps reduce a lot of health issues.
Well, I mean, the reason that it is because it's going to be more. whole, right? Where we understand where the the produce or the food is coming from. So we kind of have a better understanding that it's not processed, meaning it's not refined. It's kind of it can spoil, and that's where you can see its wholesomeness is because like, hey, if I don't eat this, I know that it's gonna rot and deteriorate. Where other foods, they you forget you had Twinkies in a cupboard for like 3 years, and you're like, oh hey, I can still eat these. So it's like, okay, we can have that one thing, and I'm totally guilty of it, dude. Like, I don't get me wrong, I love refined food all the time too, but we got to challenge the way we think sometimes and be like, hey, is this food that I can sustain for a set amount of days that can make my body feel better? And thinking of food as fuel, um, that'll help me out, or am I going to give into this impulse of chips because they're salty and they're good? Like, so basically, when you're eating healthier, you're fueling your body to perform better, in my opinion. Where we think that um, we're not doing it just because we're hungry, but there's purpose behind what we're doing when we're eating, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And uh, one way that got illustrated in a nice way that resonated for me was in Scott Adams' book, How to Win at Everything or How to Fail at Everything and Still Win Big. He wrote about look at how food makes you feel after, and that concept kind of stuck out to me. Like just when you eat something and just tracking how much energy you feel or if you feel like you want to lay down.
Right.
So I think one of the last times we talked, you talked about your struggle to get yourself to eat more vegetables. Like, you want to talk about the process and how that went?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like everybody else. Vegetables did not come easy for me. They were just very difficult to eat. I just didn't like them. I didn't know how to cook them. So they were never introduced to me as a child either. So maybe perhaps they were, and I was like, because maybe the way it was cooked or just being a kid, right? But it took me many years to just reintroduce certain vegetables. So the way I did it was trial and error, just kind of finding out ones I liked, and if I didn't like it, then I didn't like it. But I'd always make sure that I would try it twice, and try different ways to cooking it. And kind of my way to get myself to buy into it really was intermittent fasting and having my first meal be heavy in vegetables and lean meats because that's where I struggled. And my first meal of the day, I'm going to be hungry, so I don't care what I eat, and it's going to be something helpful. Right. So that's kind of how I introduced vegetables into my diet.
Yeah. Have you seen the Game Changers documentary?
I haven't. No, tell me about that.
So it's just showing these athletes and how they've benefited from a vegetarian diet, and some of the science is questionable, but it's still very like inspiring documentary.
Okay.
So it got me interested in being more like they use the term plant-based, but vegetarian, whatever you want to call it. And I'm not 100% committed to that by any means, but
Yeah.
it's just and it's like I was gonna ask you about like if the Mediterranean diet would be like a good baby steps for moving towards that end of that spectrum, and if you're not gonna fully commit.
That's a good question. Um, Honestly, if I were to give my opinion on that, as far as like a baby step, um, would be just taking a single day where you take one meal and make it plant based, right? Like rather than being like, I'm gonna commit to this entire um, diet, lifestyle, whatever you want to label it, right? I would do it this way, like try it, like just try it once a week, try it maybe twice a week, right? You take your breakfast or you take your lunch, whatever meal you have most control over the day, and make it that type of dish you want it to be, and see if you like it. and let that become routine, and then add in an additional day, and then an additional day, and then introduce more concepts to it, where you start very simple and small, and you gradually build, because what happens is we see the overall end picture. And again, I'm guilty of this, so if I'm ever speaking as if I don't do this, I'm the master of doing these things wrong. It is overthinking that we have to get to the big step immediately. Like, I have to start big in order to get big, right? And let me ask you this: how often does that work? How often does that work for you, right? Like, I'm going to take this entire cake and I'm going to eat it in one sitting. Okay, cool, try it, right? And it's like, well, let's think about it differently. Let me try a piece of that cake and see if I like it, right? And then you can go back and be like, can I have another piece? Can I have another piece? Right? Rather than thinking that we have to eat the entire cake, let's just go by pieces.
Yeah, because I know for myself, I have been just doing for a couple of years now, just I don't eat breakfast, and I'll just have like a bowl of oatmeal with applesauce and maybe like a banana in there, and that's my lunch. And that's pretty low fat. It's vegetarian. And then I can have whatever for dinner, and obviously it's healthy-ish most of the time. I mean, I'll have pizza once in a while or whatever, but
Right.
and I think we both are big fans of tacos. So,
Right. I mean, who isn't?
right. Uh, where was I? Sorry, I'm just looking at my list of questions. So, I guess, yeah, what are your thoughts with, like, because we kind of touched on intermittent fasting earlier, so eating like 2 meals a day versus like 3 or 4, and people like snacking?
I work with people, again, like, it depends on who you're asking. For who I work with and for what I do, I typically recommend like 3 or 4 meals with small snacks. I mean, if you're capable of doing 2 meals a day, like, kudos to you. But for me, I can't. I need to make sure that my body's constantly being fueled, because of the intensities of my training, the intensities of my work, things like that. So when it comes to intermittent fasting and kind of breaking those things apart, it just really depends on like you and what your time is available, right? Like, some people can do their fast between a 6 to 8 hour block. Cool. Other people's 10 to 12 hours, right? And I'm the same way. I don't eat breakfast, and the reason being is I have terrible acid reflux. So if I eat anything in the morning, like, it immediately just gets like aggravated, and I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, I'm forcing myself to feel gross. Like, no. So my first meal may range anywhere from 10 to like 12 p.m. Like, it just really kind of varies. And the one thing that I'm currently doing differently now is I'm looking at how my food makes my workouts feel. Like, is my nutrition aiding in my recovery and in my energy reserves to do what I want to do, and seeing how that affects my body and my workouts.
Yeah, and that's something I'll say, banging my head against the wall the hard way. Was like, I would get home from work and then eat and then go to MMA, and some nights I would just be like, blah, I ate a lot or whatever, and it's just it took a long time for it to click. Like, well, maybe if you had like a smaller meal,
Yeah, it'll feel less gross.
it's like, and that makes a lot of sense what you're saying with like you got to look at the structure of your day and your training and stuff, and kind of make a decision from there, and look at your performance and feeling and all that. So that makes sense. And one thing I was reading with the Mediterranean diet was just and maybe you can talk, I don't know how big of an eater you are, like if you like bigger meals or smaller meals, but it's like, how do you balance like portion size and smaller meals versus also actually like getting full?
Oh, dude, yeah, no, that's a great question. It's a matter of I use the 80-20 rule when it comes to like what I should feel like when I'm full. So for me, I have to help people understand that the clean plate club rule is outdated and we need to stop doing that
Mm.
because um, it's not helpful anymore at all. Like it's just it adds to weight gain throughout the year. So when I say 80-20, I think of I want to eat until I'm 80% full. I don't want to be completely stuffed because I like to think of I want to be able to do something after I eat. Like I don't want to be on the couch. I want to be able to go back to drawing or reading or going for a walk, playing with um, pets, things like that. You know, I want to think of feeling good after I eat. So I usually leave 2 bites left on my plate. I if it's not portioned out right, I will do that. If I always just make sure that I leave feeling energized and I can be like, cool, if I needed to do this one thing, I can do that and not worry that I can't. So when it comes to looking at portions and things, one thing that I found helpful is using smaller plates. Use smaller plates, take longer bites so you're chewing longer,
Yeah.
um, and drinking water before you eat to help you make you feel full, or eating food that's going to make you feel full, right? Like there's so many things you can manipulate in this situation. It's just a matter of finding, you know, what's not working.
Yeah. Like I know for myself, I was going to say that, like, I noticed that for a while, like if I just drank some water because I was dehydrated at work, because towards the end of the shift when the show starts, that's kind of crunch time for me. So the water kind of goes out the back of the back of the mind. And the other part is, so yeah, water. And then I've noticed if I have like a salad or something before the main thing I made, like if it's meatloaf or whatever, the main food, just getting those vegetables out of the way, so you've eaten them, and then you can have still be satisfied, but not eating as much of the other stuff.
Right.
And yeah, the other thing is just like you're saying, slowing down when you're eating, because it's like you don't need to be. The food isn't going anywhere. You don't need. And that's just I think a bad habit for me growing up. That I'm.
Right, man. It's everybody. It's you ever want to find out what you need to fix? All you have to do is visit your childhood. Visit up the behaviors you learned or did as a child, and it carries over to you as an adult. Like, again, why do I have to eat until I'm stuffed? Because my parents told me I had to do the clean plate club, otherwise I wouldn't leave. Right? So it's like those subtle behaviors, or I ate something and I need to cleanse my palate with something sweet because you had desserts. Well, you know, we can substitute those things, we can fix those things, but revisit why the behaviors you're doing and you can find out solutions to them.
Yeah, like for me, like fruit works well for that palate cleanse, and it's checking off that list of what you're supposed to be eating anyway. So, and then like one thing I read that I liked was like just wait like 20 minutes after the meal if you're gonna have a dessert, and sometimes the craving will just kind of go away.
Oh, that's a new one. I like that. I'll give that a try.
Yeah, I can't remember who I read that from, but but you want to talk about like the challenge of kind of healthy eating or a diet plan or whatever you want to call it when you have like a significant other, spouse, or kids?
Yeah, and that's something that again the people I work with, that's what we see is those issues. And honestly, you got to be subjective with this because you got to see where you're at in this situation. Like just because this works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So you need to understand how the concept itself is going to fit your life. So for people who I work with, I understand that my mother of three who works full time and is rushing kids in and out of school, I know that her life's crazy. She's low on energy. She's already filled with overwhelmed with what is she going to make, what are the kids going to eat, this and that. So Well, let's visit. Where do you feel like you have the most control in your life? Because right now it sounds like there's too much going on. And she's like, well, breakfast is kind of out of the mind because I got to get the kids going, but I typically can have lunch at work, and I know I can do these things. Well, cool. We understand that we have control of lunch. Let's now create a menu, right? Because everybody's like, they don't know where to go. If you use a menu, it's like a roadmap to where you need to go. So, and then don't overcomplicate it, right? If you're completely new to eating healthy, rather than taking away your typical lunch, let's say we're eating like a foot long at Subway with chips and a pop, rather than going from that to I'm only going to have a protein shake and a Caesar salad. That's insane. Don't do that because you're not going to be successful. But rather instead, turn the 12-inch to a 6-inch. Just that whole week, right? That's one subtle change. That's almost like half the calories cut already, right? That's a big change. Then make healthier decisions in your side, whether it's healthier chips or maybe you skipped chips, right? And then lastly, the next week, you can change the Dr. Pepper that you're getting for maybe lemonade, and it's like, oh, man, I really did a lot of work with little changes, and you just look at the numbers and it'll tell you what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a huge thing is like people get fixed on, I need to lose 20, 50, 500 pounds. And it's like, instead you want to focus on building up those habits of those little changes and then just kind of seeing that over time.
Yeah, it's just interest that builds up. That's all it is just, hey, I don't get an instant payout, which sucks. But also I'm going to get a bigger payout at the end rather than doing something that's going to give me instant gratification and it not lasting as long.
Right. So I got two more questions for you. So one is like, and I don't know how to word this, but just people like the rules, like a simple rule, like we were talking earlier, like keto or carnivores, you only eat meat, or butter is the enemy, eggs are evil, whatever, versus a more like reality, everything kind of has to be balanced.
Yep. So like, how would you tie that all in together with the question?
Yeah, something. I wasn't
sure.
sure.
So like,
the question.
like I guess like if there's like, I wouldn't say it's a rule, but like a rule of thumb, right? Kind of take it as you go, would be to make a menu. Number one, just make a menu. Know what you're eating. Then integrate bits of everything, right? You want to have potatoes and rice and gravy and good things that are they make us feel happy, but then also making sure that you're being healthy with yourself. So you're incorporating leaner meats, you're not eating as much fried food, you're reducing sugar intake, those type of things, because it's a matter of that balance of everything. So I would suggest that is just knowing that you can have cookies, but also make sure you're eating broccoli too, right? And then just not falling victim of quick fixes, and that's what those diets are. Any diet, regardless of what its name and what it does, ultimately will do the same thing. Because if it's a brand new stimulus and you've never done something before, guess what? Your body's going to change. And it's going to change rather rapid, and you're going to be super impressed. And then also you're going to be miserable and you're going to hate your life, and you're going to be done within like 6 to 8 weeks because it's not sustainable. So focus more so on subtle changes that will make your life easier, not harder.
Yeah, and that kind of ties into this next question with like the overall concept is just kind of tying food to emotions, but like the concept of like cheat or binge or reward days, and it's just kind of making food the fixation.
Yeah, and it stems from a bodybuilding background. And unfortunately, that's what people associate fitness with, is bodybuilders, because they're who popularized weightlifting, and their diets are insane because of their sport. So it's fitting for them to do, but for the other 99.9% of people, it is not, right? So the idea of having a cheat day, an idea of having um, the binging and the purging, like, it's just a matter of don't treat food as it's good or bad, more so of, is this going to help me with my goals or not? Like, does this help me feel better, um, regarding my physical, or maybe it's an emotional thing, right? But like, I think the idea of depriving yourself an entire week of foods that you enjoy for a day of like binging, that is extremely dangerous. So why not have fluctuation throughout the week, right? Like,
Yeah, like it doesn't make sense to me to, like you're saying, drive yourself crazy, because it's like just figure out something that you can actually do every day.
right, like, so for me, I love ice cream. I love ice cream. Like, I just can never not talk about ice cream. So I knew that I love it. So I know that it's not the best for me all the time. So what I ended up doing was I found a substitute that made things come together, where um, Halo Top ice cream.
Yep.
It's protein, it's healthy, it's for the most part, right, quote unquote healthy. But it's just within calories. It makes sense for me to enjoy something, and it's good for me, right? So find the things that are like your Achilles tendon. Like for me, I love candy, I love sweets. Well, to satisfy that feeling, I eat protein bars more often now, because the same amount of money I would spend on candy is what I'm spending on protein bars. And why not get something that'll be beneficial of it for me, right? So those things, and just finding substitutes that are healthier for you, but they
Yeah.
give you the same feeling of results.
Yeah, for a long time I liked those Fiber One bars, because they for me they satisfied the chocolate craving, but they also gave you that fiber, and it was like only 140 calories a bar, I think. So it's a pretty reasonable amount for, if you need, like for me it's like 2,400 calories or whatever, and 150 of that is chocolate and the others is decent stuff. It's like that's
Right.
the 80/20 we were talking about.
Exactly. So there's always options out there. You just gotta ask yourself what you're trying to do, or what you want to do, and then you can find the answer typically.
All right. So the last one will be, so with New Year's resolutions, and you mentioned like the quick fix and stuff, what are some of the ideas that like don't work for like diet theories or concepts or stuff?
I mean, everything that we've talked about is just avoiding fad diets, avoiding insane workouts. Like, if you're new to the gym, don't expect yourself to be there every day for an hour. It's not doable. Please. It's just not. Like, it's just, you can feel good and do it for like 2 weeks, but it's not going to be sustainable. So I would suggest like 2 or 3 times a week, just going there for like a half hour. I myself personally, I went from like an hour of training to now I just cut it down to a half hour. And I still get the same benefits. I get the same training effect. I get all the things covered I need to do, because I just want to be effective with it. So you don't have to be there for a long period of time. I would I would avoid trying to do any type of um, health coaching is what they call it, but they're selling shakes. Like, don't dive into that.
Oh, just
Uh,
a trainer that's more of a supplement pusher.
yep. Like if like supplements help, right? Like, but they're not gonna get you results. You're gonna get yourself results. So just kind of the things that are gonna be easy for you to do, don't give into. And again, meet yourself where you're at when it comes to fitness. Honestly, like, if you've never been there, just start off with 2 times a week for a half hour, and then gradually build up from there. And if you're intimidated of the gym, if you're afraid of the gym, if you have no idea what you're doing, if you need accountability, hire a professional, hire a coach, get somebody to do the work for you, because people underutilize that idea of, oh, I can do this on my own. I can do this on my own. You've done it on your own multiple times and it hasn't worked yet. Just hire a coach because they can do it for you. That's what I do. I pay for somebody to do the things I want to do, and I ask for help when I need them because I don't have the answers all the time. So I want to have somebody who either has experienced it themselves, they know more about it, or they're going to do the work to help find those answers for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing as like a dentist or whatever. It's like someone who's gone through the experience and the training, and it's like you're gonna try to, chisel your own teeth out or whatever.
Right. Like, just pay somebody to do it. I pay. Yeah, I don't. If it's in my budget, I outsource a lot of things just because there's somebody out there who's gonna enjoy it a lot better than I do,
Right.
and that's cool by me. Who am I to take that thunder from somebody?
Yeah. Yeah. So William is in Marshall with his Restored Strength gym. So I don't know if you want to give your plug.
Yeah. So if you want to ever find out more about me and what I do, go to restoredstrength.com. It is the best website ever regarding fitness. We do have a lot of fun information on there. We also do have a YouTube page, our Facebook page. We're always putting out content. So if you're in the Marshall area or the Southwest area, let us know. We'll be happy to help you out. And if not, I know a lot of people, a lot of places, and I can help you find a gym.
Yeah, and extra shout out to his Facebook page. I always get good stuff from there. So
Thank you, sir.
yeah, he does a good work. And thanks for talking with me.
Absolutely, Alex. You have a great day.
You too. Have a good one. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, feel free to share with somebody you like and leave a comment. I want to know about those little things that made a habit actually stick with you. And then tune in for the next one.